sources as well as the notes for each chapter. Although I've included allegations from many different women in this book, only Andrea's has resulted in a criminal case and conviction. However, their accounts are in statements to law enforcement, court filings, and/or testimony related to civil and criminal court proceedings or have appeared in other media. Cosby has denied Andrea's drugging and sexual assault allegations, as well as similar allegations against him from more than 60 other women, including those whose stories are told in this book, except where noted in the text. Cosby is currently incarcerated while appealing his conviction and his prison sentence. Introduction: Cosby's Gift. One Friday night not long ago, I was flipping through channels on my television when I came across a rerun of The Cosby Show. There on my screen was the lovable, sweater-clad Dr. Cliff Huxtable sitting between his son Theo and his wife Claire in a learning specialist's office. Theo had done poorly on a Greek mythology test that week, even though he knew the material, so all three were meeting with a specialist who thought Theo should be tested for dyslexia. If Theo does indeed have it, she assured the Huxtables, he could get help to overcome the learning disorder. Dyslexia, Cliff says with a relieved smile on his face, gratified to know why his son was struggling in school. Now fix it, he quips, jubilant. Cue the laugh track. Like millions of other Americans who helped make the comedy one of the most popular shows in the history of television, I became a fan of The Cosby Show when it first aired in the 1980s. It debuted my senior year of high school, the same year my older brother died, and watching the show gave me an escape out of my own fraught home and into the cozy normalcy of a family not traumatized by death. For me, the Huxtables were a 30-minute visit to a warm and stable world, where the kids would borrow each other's clothes without permission and sneak out to concerts, all while the parents lovingly guided them with witty life lessons. My own mother was nearly paralyzed with grief over the loss of her only son, and my father had all he could do to hold her together while juggling the demands of a job that took him out of town 2 or 3 nights a week. The Cosby Show was steady. The Cosby Show made me feel safe. Watching the show again brought me back for a moment to that time in my life, and I mean that in a good way. Cliff Huxtable's tough love parenting style, sprinkled with humor, also reminded me of my own father. And this episode was particularly tender. It revealed a dad who worried for his son while at the same time acknowledging his own flaws as a parent. When Theo tells his parents he is indeed dyslexic, Cliff and Claire erupt in cheers. What I also appreciated, though I didn't know it when I was a teenager, was that the show was never overly saccharine. Funny, yes, but not hyper-sentimentalized. In this episode, Vanessa chastises Cliff for calling Theo lazy all those years when it was really dyslexia holding him back, and Cliff doesn't laugh her off. He knows she's right. Then, when Theo later proudly reveals he got a B+ on his next test, Cliff couldn't be prouder. I think he should probably finish undergraduate school in 2 years because there's no sense in holding him back and going to medical school and becoming what? Dr. Huxtable Jr. Theo's gift had heart, intelligence, and humor, a recipe that was the show's hallmark. It was real and familiar. I'd watched my own father and brother engage in similar battles throughout my childhood. Although, unlike Cliff and Theo, they were never able to resolve their issues before my brother's death. When Bill Cosby's son died young, too, I couldn't help but feel an emotional connection to him. His love for his family, the grief he must have felt. I mourned with him. That night, watching the rerun while my husband, used to my fascination with Cosby by now, read a book, I found myself mesmerized, laughing along with the jokes, smiling at the warm-hearted moments, and horrified, too. Because now, all these years later, I knew that the Bill Cosby on my screen, with his dad jokes and self-deprecating style of imparting wisdom to his kids, the man who left an entire generation wishing he was their father, was also a monster. A monster who preyed on women, manipulating them into a false sense of security, drugging them and assaulting them, and masquerading as Cliff Huxtable, the personification of the family-oriented warm comedy he'd been performing for decades, was the perfect disguise. For nearly half a century, enabled by a cadre of paid handlers and silencers who did their jobs protecting his carefully honed image, Bill Cosby drugged and sexually assaulted women who thought he was their mentor. He slowly and carefully coaxed each one into feeling safe and cared for, and then left them to pick up the pieces of their lives. I was still a believer in the Bill Cosby, Cliff Huxtable myth in 2005.